After work, I returned home and had just opened the door when a hand pushed me inside from behind. The door closed, and a knife was pointed at me. A home invasion? I tried to stay calm.
I've climbed up from the bottom step by step. If you're in a hurry, I'll give you money. But if you dare to hurt me and set me back to square one, we'll both go down together.
He only wanted cash, so I rummaged through my things and found a few bills. As soon as he left, I received an urgent notice in the homeowners group: a fugitive had escaped into our area. A reward of $500,000 for anyone who reports him. I looked out the window, watching the $50,000 slip away right under my nose. I felt like I had lost $50 million and spent the next few days in regret. The only consolation was that the guy returned the few $100 I had given him. I pulled the bills from the door crack and looked around cautiously. Sure enough, there was someone standing in the shadow of the corner. I acted nonchalant, quickly opened the door, and darted inside.
Call the police. This was no longer just about the 50,000.
I called Mike, the security guard, and after a while, a few people came up. I looked through the peephole and saw them walk past my door, then heard knocking next door.
Did you make the call?
They knocked on the wrong door. I immediately opened my door and went out, but didn't dare reveal anything in front of Sarah, my neighbor. I pretended to be calm.
Are you looking for someone?
They turned around. At the same time, there was a noise behind me, and one of the guards started to walk towards it. I looked back, thinking, now is not the time to get distracted.
That's a dead end, it's just a cat's nest.
I pointed to the corner.
When I came back, there was someone there. There's a staircase ahead.
If they went downstairs, finding him would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. The group of guards left again. I didn't even have time to say, "Don't forget my contribution if you catch him." I turned back to my apartment. Suddenly, a cat's screech echoed sharply in the quiet hallway, startling me. I turned around and met a pair of eyes, calm yet aggressive. In my mind, I heard a dramatic thud, like a string snapping, and I almost lost my breath. He stood in the shadows, his tall figure imposing. My hair stood on end. When did he get over here? Once everyone left, finding someone outside the community would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. A group of people hurriedly walked away. I didn't even have time to say, "Don't forget my contribution when you catch the person."
Turned around and went back inside.
Suddenly, a cat's screech echoed sharply in the quiet hallway, startling me.
Turned around and met a pair of eyes, calm yet aggressive. And my mind heard a dramatic thud, like a string snapping, and almost lost my breath.
James stood in the shadows, his tall figure exuding an oppressive presence. My hair stood on end. When did he get here? What does it feel like to suddenly have a dangerous and unknown man living in your home? I was distracted, and Robert, the petty boss, took it out on me, reprimanding me in front of everyone.
This is unacceptable. Pay attention to your work.
It's not a big deal, just be careful next time.
She nudged me, "Go back to work." I didn't bother to argue with that idiot boss, but when I got off work in the evening, it was raining, and I had to push my dead battery bike through the rain, clenching my teeth in frustration. When I got home, I remembered the person who was barely hanging on. I opened the attic door, and he glanced at me weakly, leaning against the door.
Water.
Get it yourself.
Is there any food?
I pointed to the kitchen. Make it yourself. I just wanted to sleep, so I closed the door. Don't disturb me. The sky was gloomy, and I fell asleep quickly. When I woke up, I heard knocking from far away, getting closer. I sat up, and it was completely dark outside. He had made dinner, and we ate together. I wasn't used to eating quietly with someone at the table. Outside, the stars were dim, and it was drizzling. Inside, the only sound was the clinking of bowls and chopsticks. Suddenly, I felt an urge to cry. We were like two animals huddling together for warmth, grateful for the shelter.
Aren't you afraid I'll poison the food?
I continued eating. Whatever, I'm tired of this penniless and frustrating life anyway.
Are you in a bad mood?
I paused, with an unidentified fugitive at home. Who wouldn't be? Actually, I was afraid he might put something in the food, so the next day, I cooked for myself. I got distracted and cut my finger, blood instantly staining the cutting board red.
He looked for a Band-Aid, and I said gloomily, "There are none left." He offered to go buy some, and I hesitated before giving him directions. The community is big, don't get lost.
The door closed, and he left. I went to the bedroom and took out a Band-Aid to put on. Since he appeared in the community, the police had increased their presence and patrols. The directions I gave him led to the plainclothes officer's base. I told myself, he chose to go, he's a fugitive, and I'm doing the right thing by helping the authorities. I sat on the sofa playing with my phone, but I couldn't stop thinking about his weak figure as he went down the attic stairs, and those eyes. I stood up and went downstairs. Two uniformed men walked towards me.
After some effort, we finally caught this guy.
If he doesn't shed a layer of skin, he's lucky.
Darn it, he made my hand bleed. We'll pull out his nails when we get back.
My mind was filled with images of torture. I grabbed one of them. What did you do to him?
Who? You mean that cat?
I saw 3 scratches on his hand, let go of his hand, and stood there, overwhelmed with mixed emotions. Suddenly, someone patted my shoulder.
Why did you come down? Afraid I'd get lost?
We noticed the Band-Aids on each other's hands but said nothing. I turned to go back, and he followed behind. Since then, I never asked him to go downstairs again, but he went on his own and was recognized by the residents. I knew he went out every now and then, but I never asked what he was doing, and he never mentioned it. I heard loud shouting from downstairs and paced nervously inside, my mind racing. I realized I wasn't just worried about him getting caught, I was also worried he might implicate me. I decided to go out and press the elevator button. Before the elevator fully opened, I stepped in and bumped into someone. It was Sarah.
Oh no, don't go out. The district notified us, they're catching people. Hurry back. Hurry back.
My body stiffened, and I followed her back. The noise outside grew more chaotic, sometimes near, sometimes far, making my heart race. After a period of intense anxiety, I calmed down. I thought, whatever happens, happens. We were never meant to be together. Bang, bang, bang. Someone knocked on the door. My heart jumped again. Reflexively, I opened the door, and sure enough, it was him. I met his eyes, his expression tense, expectant, and urgently staring at me. The noise outside continued, and we stood at the door, facing each other. The shouting and footsteps seemed to be in the hallway, in the elevator, a chaotic mix. His eyes lowered, and he turned to leave. I made a quick decision and pulled him inside. Neither of us spoke. We sat quietly in the living room until the noise outside gradually subsided. Only then did I notice my back was soaked with sweat, and my forehead was covered in cold sweat. The scene of everyone shouting to catch him made me realize how bold I was being. Do you know I've always wanted to turn you into the police?
Since you gave me directions to the clinic yesterday, I suspected it. I only confirmed it just now.
I nodded. Good to know. Turn yourself in. My small place can't accommodate someone like you.
I have nowhere to stay.
What does it matter to me if you have nowhere to stay? If you have nowhere to stay, sleep under a bridge or on the street. If others can do it, why can't you? Stop being picky. Please, let me live my honest life in peace.
He said nothing and placed 2 items on the table, an ID card and a knife. I didn't really commit a home invasion, he said, picking up the knife. This is a prop. I was really desperate at the time. I'm sorry.
I picked up the ID card and saw his name was David. In the photo, his face was clean, and he was only a year older than me.
I'm not a wanted criminal. I took the blame for someone else. My brother was involved in a hit-and-run, and I took the fall for him. That's it.
Why take the blame?
My brother was delivering goods. He hadn't slept for 3 days and nights and fell asleep at the wheel, hitting someone. My mom was so angry she ended up in the hospital. We had no choice. When it happened, my sister-in-law was pregnant.
I was shocked and speechless. So you just took the blame for a few years? Why not turn yourself in?
I've been in contact with my brother. The person he hit is trying to extort us. They have power and influence. If I go back, I'll go to jail. My brother said that after some time, they'll ease up, and it will be fine.
I sneered. Why should I believe you?
If I were really a dangerous criminal, would I have put up with you treating me like this? Locking me in the attic, not giving me food or water. I'll take you to meet my family, don't call the police.
Aha, you were pretending to scare me before. I'll believe you for now. Until then, you continue sleeping in the attic. At night, I locked the attic with a chain as usual. Unexpectedly, this lock sealed his escape route. That night, as I was about to fall asleep, there was a sudden commotion outside, mixed with shouts of fire. Fire! Before I even opened my eyes, I smelled smoke and jumped up, running downstairs in one breath. Everyone gathered together, comforting each other. I suddenly thought of David and looked around for him. Wait, the attic is locked. He can't get out. The fire started above us, we live on the 5th floor, the fire isn't too bad yet, there's still hope to save him. But it's dangerous, the floor above might have already collapsed. He's a wanted man, he deserves his fate. To hell with it, don't mess with my family. Cursing in my mind, I rushed back.
Hey, that girl, don't go back.
Stop her! Save her! Save her!
Holding my breath, I rushed upstairs. There was no open flame, just thick smoke, making visibility low. I bent down and ran, calling out for him. He wasn't in the attic? The lock was open. Suddenly, someone grabbed me.
Let's go.
It was David. We got out, and a group of people surrounded us, some blaming, some comforting.
Luckily, everyone got out. You too. This girl went in to find this guy, who had just come out. When he heard, she went in to find him. He went back in. Oh dear.
We looked at each other, and I saw the same incredulity in his eyes as in mine. I asked, "How did you get out?" The attic was locked.
Since you locked me in all day last time, I made a spare key.
You're so cunning. James took me to meet his family, but we didn't go up to them. From a distance, I saw the happy family of 3, and it made me feel a pang of sadness. With countless questions in my mind, I told David I was going to buy some food, but in reality, I was going to find his family. As I got closer, I saw the child pointing in my direction, saying in a childish voice, "I see Uncle."
Quickly covering the girl's mouth, "That's not Uncle, Emily, you saw wrong."
I was confused. Why wouldn't they let the child recognize David? Michael carried the child away, warily looking in the direction Emily had pointed. That complex look was hard to decipher. I suddenly remembered that David had said his brother had hit someone with his car and fled the scene. People used to say that if you hit someone with your car, it's better if they don't survive because the insurance company will pay for it, but if they're injured, you'll be financially ruined. A chill ran through me, and I pulled David back. I asked him again, "Why are you taking the blame for your brother? He has a child and a wife, but you just started your career. And your brother looks
Interrupting me looks fierce, right? That's because of the scar on his face. I was mischievous as a child and poked him with scissors. My brother loved me when we were kids. When we got into trouble, he took the blame. When I was bullied at school, he fought 10 people at once. He looked into my eyes and said, "Don't judge a book by its cover."
I opened my mouth but didn't know what to say. I had a bold guess that maybe his brother had deceived him, and the Real accident might not be as he said. After meeting his family last time, today James suddenly said he missed his family and wanted to see his brother's child.
Let's go to the kindergarten to pick up my brother's child.
So I accompanied him to the kindergarten. When we arrived, school hadn't let out yet. The teacher brought the child out, and the little girl happily shouted, "Uncle!"
Uncle!
James bought the child lots of treats and toys, entertaining her all the way. The next day, as I passed by that kindergarten, it was during the holiday, and the gate was closed, but there was a police car parked outside. I heard that a child had gone missing from that kindergarten. I went back and mentioned this to David, but he didn't seem to care.
Why should that concern us?
The next morning, I was woken up by a commotion. When I got up, I saw that David was getting ready to take the child to find her father.
We need to take her back to her father.
I played with the child for a bit and prepared to make some food for us. While I was cooking, David brought the child into the kitchen.
My brother is waiting anxiously over there. We need to leave now.
Around noon, he returned, holding the child in his arms.
My brother got into another argument with the family he had an accident with. He's in a bad mood, and he argued with my sister-in-law, even scolding the child. Let Emily stay here for a few more days.
I agreed. But this time, the child seemed to be frightened by her father and kept crying, even to the point of retching. I helplessly asked him, "Can you call your brother or sister-in-law? Let them comfort the child."
No.
I was taken aback.
They're already overwhelmed. Don't bother them with the child.
So I went downstairs to buy some toys the child liked. When I came back, the child had stopped crying and was asleep. David was very good at comforting the child, always able to calm Emily down. Sometimes, when the child's throat was hoarse from crying, we had no choice. I suggested again that the child should see her parents. David still disagreed. Suddenly, a thought struck me, and I asked him, "Are you hiding something from me?" I always felt he didn't want the child to see her parents.
What are you suggesting?
He was stunned for a moment, then silently took the child to the room to comfort her. After a while, the child stopped crying.
She's asleep. You're right. I don't want my brother to see the child because he wants to use her to pay off his debt.
What do you mean?
That family is extorting us. Where can we get that much money? They want our child. My brother went crazy and actually tried to give them the child. That day, when I took Emily back, my sister-in-law hid it from my brother and asked me to take the child away again.
I couldn't believe someone would give up their own child. Taking this opportunity, I brought up what I had said before. "David, have you ever thought that your brother might be lying to you?"
What do you mean?
Hit and run, letting you take the blame, hiding for years. It didn't have to be this serious from the start. Was the person he had an accident with not disabled, but gone?
Don't talk nonsense. My brother isn't like that. He couldn't have lied to me.
Seeing his resolute expression, I didn't say anything more. But human nature is universal. If his brother could abandon his child, he might also do such a thing, whether out of anger or ulterior motives. I gave up the idea of returning the child, but I didn't expect to meet Michael so soon, and in such an unexpected way.
Where's the child? Where's David? Where did he go?
Can you imagine a large, scarred face suddenly grabbing you and roaring in front of you? I dropped everything and ran, using my familiarity with the environment to quickly shake him off. I hid by a wall, panting, and when I turned around, I saw a woman crying at me. It was Sophia.
Miss.
Then that man followed. This time I didn't run because a few police officers came along. I felt like I was stepping into a surreal world. Everything seemed so unreal.
David, originally named David, is 32 years old. 5 years ago, he had an accident with a truck at night. Out of fear of taking responsibility, he repeated the act, causing a fatality, hoping to rely on insurance compensation.
After the incident, David fled home, not expecting the victim's family to come looking the next day.
The person he hit was a local villager, and the whole process was captured by a wall-mounted camera.
David didn't want to settle it publicly and couldn't afford to settle it privately. In desperation, he tried to take his brother's child. His brother, in a fit of protective rage, got into a fight with him, resulting in the long scar on his face.
Since then, David left home. His brother couldn't bear to see him in debt and homeless, so he had been helping him pay off the debt for years. But the two brothers had hardly seen each other since.
So he disguised himself as someone in his 20s, hiding everywhere?
How could you be so naive?
Do you have any property or safety losses?
I then remembered the first time I met him. Maybe he really intended to rob the house but later changed his mind to play the long game. It turned out that the child they discussed losing at the kindergarten was Emily. David deceived me, using me as a cover to abduct the child. That time he said he would return the child but came back because he was meeting with the buyers. Because the police were investigating everywhere, they didn't complete the transaction.
He's desperate for money now, and Emily is in his hands.
I didn't want to risk myself, but now, it was inextricably linked to me. I carried my things and went back as if nothing had happened, planning to bring the child out first. When I got home, neither he nor the child was there. I threw my things haphazardly in the living room and searched each room, but no one was there. However, I found bottles of sleeping pills on his desk. Suddenly, it hit me. No wonder the child never cried when she was with him, he had been giving such a young child sleeping pills. Now I couldn't find him anywhere. Could he have already sent the child away? I grabbed my phone and called the police. Just as the call connected, the door opened. It was David, holding the child.
Who are you calling?
Oh, I was just about to call you, and here you are.
As I spoke, I stepped forward to take the child. Emily seemed to be asleep. He dodged.
It's okay. She was crying a lot, so I took her out for a walk. Now that she's asleep, I'll just put her in the bedroom.
I awkwardly withdrew my hand. All I could think about was how to get the child out, but he was in the living room, not moving. After a while, the child woke up and I carried her around. David had been inside for quite some time but hadn't come out. I gently placed the child on the sofa and went to get my phone. I tiptoed and quietly unlocked the door, not daring to look back.
Where are you going?
My hand shook, and I stiffly turned around. Ever since I learned about his misdeeds, he seemed much more menacing. He just stood there, not doing anything, but I couldn't help associating him with words like ruthless and cold-hearted. I said, "It's time to take Emily to kindergarten."
Today is Saturday.
I pretended to realize, "Oh, I know, I was just trying to coax her. She's been at home for so many days, wanting to play with her friends." He nodded and came over to take the child, give her to me. I didn't let go, nor did I dare to look him in the eye.
What's wrong?
His tall figure was overwhelming. I let go, and for a moment, I thought about running away, not caring about anything else. Maybe he sensed something was wrong because he unexpectedly ordered takeout, leaving me without an excuse to go out and buy groceries. I ate the meal without much interest, then heard a smack Emily had hit his face. I was startled, silently chanting, "Don't hit the face, don't hit the face," fearing that if he got angry, we'd both be in trouble.
It's okay.
He continued feeding Emily, saying, "Eat well to grow tall, eat well to grow tall." I felt a chill, thinking he was saying, "Eat well to be on your way, eat well to be on your way." Finally, night fell, and I prepared to escape with the child once more. Before that, I had given him water mixed with a sleep aid, which I had secretly taken from his room. Holding the sleeping Emily, I moved step by step towards the door, guided by the light coming through the window. The living room was so quiet that only our breathing could be heard. I turned the doorknob and gently opened the door.
Suddenly, ring, ring, ring. As expected, without thinking, I rushed out with the child.
Would the door open? I heard noises from inside. In a moment of hesitation, David yanked me back inside. I collapsed on the floor, and the child woke up, crying loudly.
I tried to stay calm. Not pretending anymore? You knew all along? Didn't drink that water?
He sneered. What a fool. I've used sleep aids so many times. Do you think you know them better than I do?
He walked past me, removed the bar, locked the door, drew the curtains, and finally turned on the light. His cold, hard silhouette was reflected on the glass cabinet, as was my pale face. He walked over and took the child from me. My hands trembled with fear, but I mustered the courage to shout at him.
Let go. Don't take your anger out on such a small child.
He grabbed my wrist and squeezed hard, making me lose my grip, and he took the child. He locked the child in a room. He squatted in front of me. Did you see my brother?
I ignored him, and he continued talking to himself.
I should have listened to them and tied you up.
At this point, I became somewhat calm. You planned this from the beginning? I helped you out of kindness, and you repay me with betrayal. And that child, she's your niece.
Shut up! Niece, my foot! Her mother, my sister-in-law, had her with another man. My brother is a fool for taking her in, and I'm angry for him. He dared to hit me over this illegitimate child.
I was stunned and muttered, but you still want to take someone else's child.
He seemed surprised that I dared to talk back, glaring at me.
Why not? I'll give this child away, solve one of my problems, and help him vent his anger. She's not even our family's blood.
Listening to his twisted logic, I felt there was no point in arguing with him.
I didn't plan to do anything to you. He squatted in front of me, staring at me like a predator. Let's make a deal. You pretend you didn't see anything, and we don't interfere with each other.
I wanted to calm him down, so I nodded. He patted my face.
I know you're crafty, so don't try any tricks.
He then removed the battery from my phone in front of me and told me to go soothe the child. He said if he heard the child cry, he would want to throw her. I held the child and barely managed to fall asleep. I woke up to a child nudging me, saying she was hungry. I looked at the sky. It was almost dawn, so I got up to find something to eat. As soon as I opened the door, I was startled by David standing there.
Where are you going?
Emily is hungry.
Wait.
He quickly made some food, occasionally glancing at us. I sat far away with the child, both of us slowly eating from our bowls. He just scoffed, as if mocking our lack of defenses. Knowing he needed money, I offered to pay for our safety, but he clearly wasn't interested, as he had found a more profitable way.
Blocking someone's path to wealth is like killing their parents.
I swallowed all my words. I was waiting. If I didn't contact Michael and the police within 24 hours, they would take action. The time was almost up. I held the child and tried to go inside, but he stopped me, pointing to the sofa.
Sit there.
He stayed nearby, occasionally looking at us. I heard him on the phone, mentioning some mall, and half an hour later. I was calculating in my mind, and he seemed to know what I was thinking.
Waiting for the time?
He walked over to take the child. I didn't let go, and unusually, he didn't use force. For the sake of me taking you in before, don't hurt us. Stop this.
Otherwise, how do you think you're still unharmed?
He tried to take the child again, and I didn't let go. He checked the time again, seeming impatient.
I'll give you a chance. Let go yourself, or don't blame me for being ruthless.
He pulled out a knife and pointed it at me.
This time it's not a prop. If you keep resisting, when they come, I won't be so nice.
I didn't know who he meant by they, maybe the people wanting the child, or his accomplices. I could only stall. Let me make a call. If I don't contact them, they'll break in.
Not necessary. Do you think I'm stupid?
He forcefully twisted my arm, making the child cry loudly. He panicked, not wanting too much noise, and used more force. In the struggle, he cursed, and I felt a sudden dull pain in my waist. He had kicked me.
I want money, you want to live, don't anger me.
In that moment, I remembered he was ruthless enough to run over people for money and escape. I gave in. He covered the child's mouth, holding her under his arm, and backed out. I caught my breath, holding my waist and looking for my phone, turning it on while walking out. By the time I got downstairs, they were nowhere to be seen. In my panic, the parents arrived with 2 plainclothes officers, but they said they hadn't seen a man with a child come down. No time to explain, I recalled the phone conversation and told them about the mall and the time.
Hurry! Hurry!
She almost fainted, but the plainclothes officer caught her. They immediately made arrangements. I took Mom upstairs. While waiting for the elevator, the usually dazed and mumbling Mom suddenly said,
"You go up first, my phone is with Dad."
I was surprised by her sudden assertiveness but didn't feel comfortable leaving her alone. Just as I was about to speak, I looked over her shoulder and saw a dark figure standing in the shadows by the stairs. It didn't move, and I couldn't even tell if it was a person. Before I could react, the figure stepped out on its own. David! He hadn't left the building. He was holding the child, who was completely still. He looked at us and said,
"Thanks to you, I owe you one."
"Thank me? For what? For misleading the police to chase him far away?"
Thanks, Sophia.
What? I didn't even hear clearly. I kept pulling on Mom. Ma'am! Ma'am! She didn't move. Only then did I realize something was off. Why did she urge the police to go to the mall without asking questions? Why did she stay still when she saw David holding the child? Because she was in cahoots with David. Now, not only was the child in danger, but so was I. I immediately let go and pushed her aside.
I wanted to let you go to save me some trouble, but you just wouldn't listen.
She turned and stared at me, stepping closer. Her face was expressionless. Her messy hair and fake tear-stained eyes now looked somewhat crazed, sending chills down my spine and making my hair stand on end. In this dim and silent corner, my legs went weak.
Forget it, let's go.
She recognized your face.
She didn't recognize yours. At most, she'll end up like you, hiding behind a mask. He then turned and looked at me disdainfully. She can't cause any trouble.
The woman had her back to me, so I couldn't see her expression, but I could feel the tension between them. They had me cornered, and there was no way I could escape. It wasn't until David said,
"Don't complicate things,"
that the standoff eased. I watched them leave with the child, feeling waves of fear. The prolonged mental stress made me faint. I woke up in the hospital, slowly piecing together the events that had led me there. It turned out I had been deceived. The information I received was always one-sided, fed to me by David. He kept giving me new information, layer upon layer, confusing my judgment.
How could I have been so blind?
When I first met him, he claimed to be someone pretending to take the fall for his brother. After I drove him away, he symbolically took me to meet his family to gain sympathy and then used me to take the child from kindergarten.
I trusted him.
After Dad revealed David's true identity to me, he pretended to be indignant about taking the blame for his brother, trying to clear his name. The so-called mom openly helped them escape.
They were all in on it.
In fact, the child was born to his brother and his ex-wife. The ex-wife gave birth to Emily and never made it off the operating table. The woman didn't like this stepdaughter and constantly complained about her husband being too honest and always being mistreated. David, desperate and cornered, wanted to make money off the child. The two of them conspired and set this trap.
Desperation breeds cunning, and even blood brothers can fall out, let alone a couple who met halfway.
This patched-together family was like an old garment with mismatched patches, ugly and fragile. From beginning to end, the only one truly pained by the child's situation was the scar-faced man I thought looked fierce.
He was the only one who cared.
After leaving the hospital, I packed up and prepared to move to a new place. Every now and then, I would inquire about the progress of the child's case, but I never saw anyone related to this incident again. Day after day, finally, one day, I received a definite answer: the child had been found, and the perpetrators were brought to justice.
Thank goodness.
I went to see Dad. After months, his hair was completely white, and his face was deeply lined with wrinkles. There was no sound of a child in the house.
Uncle, where is the child?
He took me to a small grave.